My name is Rachel Rofe. I created the show because I wanted to help you see that if you have a choice, you can choose a better life. If you're listening to this podcast, you're in a pretty fortunate position. You have free will, ability to connect to the internet, and access to all kinds of new education. This podcast is meant to help you make the most of your good fortune. We talk with all kinds of people here from all walks of life because I want you to see that no matter what your situation, there's always a way to create a life that you're proud of. Hello! So today's show is all about how to get endless content for your website or your podcast. And the reason why I thought about this is because I have a Facebook group and I was asking people why they didn't have a podcast. So not like you should have a podcast, but I was just genuinely curious, why don't people have a podcast? And the biggest thing that people kept saying is that they didn't feel like they had enough content to have their own show. And I thought it was really interesting, and I know a lot of people also feel that same way about having a blog. And I think that having content is really important, whether it be with a podcast or a blog or really anything. The more content that you can put out, the more people can just get a feel for who you are, what you're about. And you know, when you put out lots of free content, it makes it easier for people to find you, share your content, and then eventually sign up for whatever it is that you're offering. So in today's show, I'm going to go over different ways that you can get all kinds of content, really endless amounts, and not only just content, but things that people actually really want to hear about. So today's show is sponsored by podcastprodigy.com, which is my course that teaches you all about how you can create a podcast on your own and get in front of all kinds of new people. Okay, so let's get into it. Some different ways that you can get lots of content ideas for your podcast or blog. First thing that you can do that I think is so helpful if you're not sure what to write or talk about is to go onto forums or Facebook groups. Forums, I think, are especially helpful. So how this works is whatever your niche is, you would just do a search for that niche plus forum. Go onto the forum, and a lot of forums will actually, you can sort by views, so you can just hit views, and then the forum will start to populate whatever posts have been viewed the most. And by that, you can see what people are most interested in because it's getting a lot of people to look at it. So for example, if you were into vegetable gardening, you'd go to the vegetable gardening forum, click views, and then see the different things. Like maybe people are asking about what kind of soil or the best types of vegetables to grow in certain climates, that kind of thing. I think forums are so helpful because you're getting to see exactly what people in your industry really are interested in. And even if the forum does not auto sort out by how many views, like if you actually have to go through, you can still go through the forum yourself and just eyeball which posts get the most views. You can also go into Facebook groups, and although there's no way to automate it, you can go and see what has the most comments, what has the most likes, and what's just generating the most interest. And so by doing this, again, you're just learning what people who are your ideal clients are wanting to know more about. Another way that you can get really great content is just to interview people. So you can go into people who are in your niche and ask them questions. And this way you don't even need to come up with the content yourself. You can just ask them different questions about what they do. This can really create endless permutations of content because everybody's going to have a different answer, and you'll have regular great stuff to show to your audience. Something else is check and see what other people are writing about. So I'm not saying to go and steal people's ideas, but a lot of times you can go and see what other people are writing, and then you have your own spin for it. There's a lot of people who have similar kind of niches, but they just have different spins. So for example, after I published this podcast, I saw the Shalene show, and she has a very similar podcast. I think she launched like a week or two after mine. And I've noticed that we do have a lot of the same topics, but we approach them differently. And so you can do this with blogs. And then the other thing is you can also do it with existing podcasts. So see if there's existing podcasts that are in your niche and what they're talking about, and that might give you some ideas as well. You can also look at customer questions. So, I have a friend who, she's in my mastermind, and she was writing to the group, and she said, I keep getting these people writing in with questions. I know they're not going to become clients, and I'm feeling resentful because I don't want to have to do all this work for free. And I totally understood. So I told her, I think you have really two options. Tell them that you're not interested in helping and, in a nice way, or do something that actually benefits you if you're answering those questions and turn them into blog posts. And she was all about turning them into the blog posts. So same thing, if you're getting people writing in with questions, don't just, answer them and then be done with it. Maximize it. Make them into podcasts and blog posts. And if one person is asking a question, then probably a lot of other people are interested as well. Something else that I think is really helpful is to keep an idea file, because there's going to be times when you're way more inspired and creative than other times. So I like to have a text pad file where it's called podcast ideas. I have another one, blog post ideas. And I'll just go through, and every time I get ideas, I'll just write down a whole bunch of ideas. And then when I'm not as motivated, I can go through and check that list and just go from there. What's also helpful is sometimes I'll do focus hours. So like I'll have, let's say 60 minutes. A friend and I are both accountable to each other for those 60 minutes to get a bunch of things done. You could do a focus hour with a friend and just say, in this time, I'm going to come up with 25 podcast ideas, period. And I find that when you give yourself that short amount of time and you're super focused, you can start to come up with some really good ideas. Other things you can do, there's so many ways to get great content. You can look at tweet chats, so hashtag tweet chats. There are all kinds of chats about different things, different niches. So if there's one for your niche, go and see what people are asking, what kind of questions they have during these tweet chats on Twitter. And that should give you ideas for different things to write about as well. You can also look on Quora, Quora, or Yahoo Answers, and both of those places, just type in whatever your niche is about or different keywords in your niche and see if people are asking questions about that. So, for example, I saw a post on Quora about how to get more Twitter followers. That's something that I think I'm really good at. And so I created a blog post about that. I wouldn't have thought about that otherwise, but I saw that people were interested in it. And the cool thing about Quora is someone can ask a question and then other people can watch the question because they want the answers too. So you can gauge based on how many people are watching the question, what the interest level is of certain things. And so for the Twitter follower, for example, that question, people were interested in it. And so that was really helpful. Another thing you can do is there's a website called Topsy, Topsy, and with that website, you can go in, type in whatever your niche is, and then it's going to tell you what popular posts about your particular niche are. So for example, I just typed in podcasting on Topsy, and I'm getting all kinds of things. One is a Fast Company article, the future of media is podcasting. I see 7 secret truths about the benefits of podcasting. The comedy and here's it. This is about a specific podcast. Why aren't you podcasting? South Africa. Is this the peak of podcasting? So these could give me some different ideas or spin-offs of things that I could be talking about if I wanted to create more podcasting-based content. You can also go and look at other popular blogs. I actually got this idea off of Social Media Examiner, and I'll link to it in the show notes. But they said one idea of coming up with great content is go on blogs in your niche, make a comment, make an insightful comment about something that somebody else wrote about, and then you can take that same content and then turn it into a blog post or a podcast so that you can leverage it for your site as well. So you want to reword it a little bit so it doesn't look like duplicate content, but now you get to, benefit with the other people's blog and get in front of their audience and then also have stuff for yourself. Another fabulous thing to do is just survey people who are in your niche. Ask them what they want to learn more about. So this could be surveying if you have an existing list. That would be great. You could go into Facebook groups after you've provided some value yourself and ask what else people want to learn about. You can also, one thing that I love doing is I'll go and I'll look at outlines for books in my niche. So, for example, if I want to do more podcasting content, we'll say again, I'll type in podcasting on Amazon. I'll look at Amazon Kindle, click the look inside feature, and I'll see what people are putting in their books. What are their outlines? Because every chapter is a whole nother idea for something that I could create content on. Same thing if I wanted to type in vegetable gardening. I could find all kinds of different ways to get different topics to talk about with vegetable gardening. And while I'm on Amazon, or while you're on Amazon, another thing you can do is look at the reviews for the books in your niche, because people are going to say what they really appreciated out of the books, what they didn't appreciate, what they wanted more of, and that's going to give you ideas for content as well. I mean, you can see there's so many things here. You can also ask people to interview you. I'm on the mailing list of this woman named Erin Pavlina. She's an intuitive. And a few months ago, she had this thing where she told people that they could interview her. So they could send 12 questions in. She would pick 10 of the 12 questions, and then she would answer them. And it could be about anything. So about being an intuitive, about her business, about her personal life. And I thought it was just genius, because now she's getting people to give her content. And so the pay for the people who are interested in these questions is they get their questions answered. And then Erin also gives them a shout out on her blog. And so they get a link to their website. So I think that's really brilliant. You can also go to people in your niche who do videos, YouTube marketing, go on their videos and just sort by what's most viewed, see what people are most interested in. There's a tool that I found called Pin Search. My friend Brittany Lynch made it, and that is a tool where you can go onto Pinterest, type in whatever your niche is, and then sort out by the pins that have been pinned the most, they've been repinned the most, or they've been liked the most. And so that's going to also show you what people are the most interested in, and so you get some content ideas for that as well. For that one, if you go to rachelrofe.com/pinsearch, you'll find the pin thing, and I'll get an affiliate commission, which I would be grateful for. You can also write to people. I mean, there's so many ideas here. I hope I'm not overwhelming you, but I'm going to have this all written down in the show notes. So don't worry. I'm going through a bunch of things here, and then you'll see the show notes and you'll get everything in a written out form. But this is just to get your mind spinning of all the different things you can do. Contact people. You can ask like 20 people, 10, 20 people to give you a 1-minute answer about a specific question. So I got an email about a month ago from somebody who asked, can you take a couple minutes and let me know what are 2 to 3 things that most people don't know about the subconscious mind? Figured fine, 2 to 3 minutes, no problem, I can help. I wrote my answer. The person sent me to his blog post, and he had done the same thing with a whole bunch of other people. He didn't have to work to come up with his answers. He just had these answers from all these other people and had great content. So that's another way. If there's magazines in your niche, you can go and see the headlines there and what those magazines are writing about and get some ideas. You could also use Google Keyword Tool if you want, because that you can type in a keyword about something in your niche, and then Google will give you all kinds of other suggested keywords on things that people are interested in. So that will give you all kinds of other permutations of content that you can come up with. I know I have gone through a whole bunch of different ideas, but it's just because there are so many ways to get content for your site. It's quite amazing, actually. I just think that, you should really never have to be in a position where you don't know what to say, given that there's so many resources out there for you. And again, I really recommend, while you're feeling motivated and inspired, create that list of a whole bunch of different content ideas. And then in the future, you'll be able to just quickly go to your content, know exactly what to talk about. You may also even want to create an editorial calendar for your blog or for your podcast. All right, I really hope that this helps you. Thank you so much for listening. Again, this has been sponsored by podcastprodigy.com, and you can totally take the content from this podcast and use it in your own podcast and just have endless content ideas. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to A Better Life. You can find all show notes for this episode at rachelrofe.com. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe so you can automatically get access to all new shows. Let's also connect. Just go onto Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram /RachelRofe, and we can talk there. The opinions of all guests here are their own, and I'm not necessarily endorsing any of them. I do want to give you perspective, though. And always remember, if you have a choice, choose a better life.